Matt Johnson, counsel of the New Hampshire Association of Realtors and a shareholder at Divine Millimet. I'm here with an installment of our risk management video series. With me today is Josh Greenwald, who is a member of our risk management subcommittee. The topic we're going to discuss today is the initial meeting with the seller. Most of this you will hear from Josh because this is really a practical discussion. The only real legal aspect of this is my reminder to everyone to make sure that you complete the brokerage disclosure form required by the Real Estate Commission, because if the commission ever brings a claim against you or asks for your file, they always check to make sure that form is completed properly. So that's just an easy way to avoid doing that. And I would say, and Josh will give you some more guidance on it, use the disclosure form as a tool. It does not have to be a painful process, and you can use it to your own advantage. And with that, Josh, I would ask you, how do you approach this initial meeting with a new seller?
A job interview. That's all I can tell you. And here's the important point. You are interviewing them as well, okay? And that means you must ask questions as they ask questions. You need to learn about the house. You need to find out what you are in for. And you need to be honest with these people, because it is their home, and now we need to turn it into what it is, which is a product, okay? And you need to tell them what it's going to take. And unfortunately, a lot of that involves removing their items, about being truthful about what you think that the property value is, because as much as you want to please people, you have to set realistic expectations. Because at the end of the day, when the house doesn't sell, you are the only variable in the equation, and they will get rid of you. And there's the old adage that in real estate, you want to be the firstborn, you want to be the second wife, and you want to be the third realtor. Because people that don't go and are not honest up front and just list the house at whatever price that the seller wants, at the end of the day, you are not serving their interests. Even if it costs you the listing, you have a responsibility to be honest and tell them what you think that the property is worth. Because if you don't, and if you don't tell them about material defects that need to be either remedied, at the very least disclosed, you could find yourself in a lawsuit, and at the end of the day, it's going to come back on you.
Do you find there are particular questions or areas that are most useful to talk about with the house to make sure and elicit that information?
Well, what I do is I come in there and I'm like, you know what? Let's walk around the house. Let me learn about the home. And then will start telling me all the things they've done, the history, and you just soak it all in. And then after we go and we have a full review, then I sit down and tell them what I think. And I never give a price right off the bat, because my mind is still wet cement at that point, my opinion of the property. And I need to go back and I need to run comparables. And some things that might seem pretty benign at first start to dwell in my head, and then they become a little bit more serious when it comes down to actually coming up with a valuation and recommendations. So you want to soak in, you want to inform them about what you're doing and the process and why you're asking these questions, and tell them to get additional opinions. And I know you feel like maybe like, oh, I don't want to encourage them to go look for another realtor to talk to. But at the end of the day, it's about them. And if they get the sense that you are trying to give them the most informed professional opinion, they're going to come back to you anyway. That's the most important thing. That's
a great point, Josh. And what about on the brokerage disclosure form? Are there any tips you have for people? I know I hear people complain about having to go through that with the seller, or people don't like to do it, or it's not their favorite thing. Any tips or suggestions on how to make it maybe more effective?
Slowly. That's my big recommendation. Take them through one step at a time. Answer every question that's on there and don't fill it out for them. Okay? I see plenty of times, I see agents' handwriting on the property disclosure, and you don't want that sort of liability.
Yeah, no, you absolutely don't. But what about in terms of brokerage disclosure form, the brokerage relationship form? Any suggestions about how to get that completed by the seller at the start of the process? I know people don't like that necessarily, or don't like having to complete that form at the very beginning. Any tips about how to go over that mandatory form?
Yeah, it can be awkward at first, but you need to explain to them that at the very core of it all, what your responsibilities are as a realtor, that you need to be honest in all dealings, regardless of whether or not you sign the listing or not with them. But once they sign that listing with me, I have a fiduciary responsibility to keep everything they tell me confidential, with exception of any material defects in the property. And I now have an enhanced responsibility to represent them. The reality is, if they decide that they don't want to sign it, they're welcome to not do that, but then I can't represent them.
That's good advice, Josh. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. That concludes this segment on the initial seller meeting. Thanks again.